Hi, this is Art, and this is from my upcoming book, 16 Mondays. Aaron Copeland was an American composer, writer, and conductor. He's best known for the works he wrote in the 1930s and 40s, such as Appalachian Spring, Billy the Kid, his Fanfare for the Common Man, and Third Symphony. In addition to his ballets and orchestral works, he produced music in many other genres, including chamber music, vocal works, opera, and film scores. I was a complete and total screw-up in school. Even in elementary school, I could just never seem to concentrate. I was a daydreamer, and I'm sure my parents were ashamed of me. I'll never forget the humiliating day when my third grade teacher, Mrs. Ford, actually came to our house to talk to my mom. I overheard her say, "We know he's not stupid, we've given him tests, but he just doesn't ever seem to apply himself." What can I say? I hated school. There was hardly ever anything that interested me. I mean, come on, does anyone really care who discovered the Great Lakes? If they had taught me something like relationship development or how to balance a checkbook or even creative writing, maybe that's something I could have gotten my head around. But the Great Lakes? Get out of here. Junior high wasn't any better, and high school was even worse. Sure, there were a couple of classes that I got something out of. Music appreciation was one of them, although I didn't do very well in it. And my 8th grade civics teacher was really good, mainly because the teacher, Mr. Carr, loved government and didn't care about grades. He mostly just stood in front of the class and lectured. He made it interesting, and to this day I'm fascinated with government and politics. Thank you, Mr. Carr. Public speaking was another class that I enjoyed because it gave me a chance to perform and be creative. So by the time I got to high school, I was pretty messed up, and school was just something to be tolerated. I didn't go to any of the football games or basketball games. I didn't go to my junior or senior prom or homecoming, none of that. And looking back, high school should have been a happy experience, like in that movie, Grease. But by the time graduation rolled around, I was flunking 3 subjects, and I needed all 3 of them in order to graduate. By that time, I had already decided that I'd join the military after high school. It was the height of the Vietnam War, 1966, and not being college material, I would surely be drafted. I knew that if I enlisted in one of the services, I would at least have somewhat of a choice about my future. But I also knew that I didn't want to start life without at least a high school diploma. Thus was my problem to solve, and I knew it wouldn't be an easy one. I had to find a way to convince these 3 teachers to give me a passing grade in spite of the way I had conducted myself in their classes. I first approached my science teacher, a very nice man, and I told him that I was passing all of my classes except for his class. I told him that I wasn't going to be going to college, I'd be joining the military instead. I told him that his class was the only thing between me and a high school diploma. I asked him if he could find it in his heart to give me a passing grade so that I could at least get my diploma. Mr. Science Teacher said that since I was passing all of my other subjects, he would give the matter some very serious consideration, and I thanked him. I then approached my math teacher with the same story and the same request. Mrs. Math Teacher was very sympathetic and said that since I was passing all of my other subjects, she would give the matter some very serious consideration, and I thanked her. I then had a heart-to-heart talk with my music teacher. This one wasn't going to be so easy. Mr. Music Teacher didn't like me, and for some very good reasons that I won't go into here. Can you imagine being such a terrible student that you need a passing grade in music appreciation in order to graduate from high school? Mr. Music Teacher reminded me that I had missed a very important final exam in his class, but that he would give me a chance to make it up. He said, "I want you to come in here tomorrow and write an outline of the complete history of classical music. If you get at least a C on the outline, I'll pass you for the year." So in other words, all I had to do was learn the complete history of music in the next 24 hours. No problem, right? But this was a challenge that I would not shy away from. After school that day, I went to the library and borrowed some very good books on music history. I then went home and wrote the greatest outline ever written on classical music. It took me until 2:30 in the morning. I then spent the rest of the night memorizing the outline. Just like memorizing the lines from a play, I started with the outline headings, then started memorizing the subheadings, and so on. I knew that Mr. Music Teacher hated my guts and wanted to see me fail, and I was going to do everything in my power to beat him. I didn't know if I could pull it off, but I was pretty sure that Mr. Music Teacher would be happy with the outline if I could remember it all. When my paper came back 3 days later, Mr. Music Teacher had written a big B+ at the top of the page. Needless to say, I was happy about the grade, but a bit curious. So after class, I went up to Mr. Music Teacher. I told him that I was happy about the grade, and I thanked him. Of course, he asked me how I did it, and I told him I just stayed up all night studying. But I said, I'm just curious. What kept me from getting an A? With a kind of smirk on his face, he said, You never mentioned Aaron Copeland. Then he punched me on the shoulder and said, See you at graduation. I hope you like my vlogs, and if you do, leave me a comment at the bottom of your screen. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up too. Thanks.